Good morning. We begin with a Texas case going before the Supreme Court on Tuesday. Minority influence and representation, both at the center of it. Justices will decide if Texas lawmakers gerrymander districts to dilute the clout of blacks and Hispanics. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is our guest this morning, talking about that and a number of issues arising out of his office right now. And joining the questioning, as always, is Bud Kennedy of the Star-Telegram. Thanks for coming in.
Morning, General.
Morning. Let's start out with the redistricting case. Lower courts have been clear that the maps have to be redrawn. Where you start from has kind of been the issue. Do you not expect that same ruling from the Supreme Court?
No, I don't. We appealed directly from a district court where we did not file. The plaintiffs filed in this district court, so we weren't shocked by the result. And we appealed directly to the U.S. Supreme Court, and we got a stay on what the district court had done, a 5-4 decision in our favor. And you'll have to remember, these are maps we've operated under with no problem since 2013. Over and over, we've had statewide elections, we've had local elections, and we've operated perfectly fine with no evidence of any problems or discrimination. And this is a map that was drawn by a 3-judge panel, and it went back to this 3-judge panel. And that 3-judge panel decided that the map that they drew was unlawful. So now we are defending, the legislature adopted that map. We're defending the map that they drew.
General Paxton, will the state's argument change at all in D.C.?
No, it'll be the same argument. This was a map that we worked with this 3-judge panel to draw. They drew it. We adopted it, and it's been operating fine in the state of Texas for literally, years and years and years. And there's no reason to overrule it now as we're getting close to redistricting again.
I want to switch off to the border as well. National Guard going down there. It's been widely reported about that. Is it time for, well, I guess the first question is, are you satisfied the federal response is now up to par to keep the border safe?
It's certainly in the right direction. We've never had this kind of response from a president. As you probably are aware, we have spent hundreds of millions of dollars on border security in Texas to shore up the border as best we can. The problem is the federal government has a lot more authority than we do to take action down there. There's a lot of things we can't do. So it has been refreshing and very helpful that we have a president that's very interested in this issue and that's actually doing something about it.
With the Guard going, though, now, is it time for the state to spend that $1 million a week elsewhere?
We'll have to see. We'll have to see how effective it is, but it's certainly, eventually, I think we're moving in that direction. If we get some type of wall, it doesn't have to be across the entire border. If we get some more border agents, if we get more help, we get more technology on the border, then ultimately I think we can pull back once we see the effects.
Last week, both Greg Abbott and Lupe Valdez he said and she agreed that if she's elected governor, she would eviscerate the sanctuary city law. Both of them used that word. What was your take on that? And gosh, is Lupe Valdez really the biggest concern Republicans have at this point?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we don't know yet who's going to be running for governor on that side, but clearly that's an issue that the legislature cared about. It's certainly an issue the governor cared about. It's certainly one that we've defended well, and as you know, we've been successful in defending that at the Fifth Circuit. Very simple law that really just requires that elected officials turn over to federal officials illegals who have committed crimes. I really have never understood why any city would want to prevent illegals who are criminals from being deported.
And I want to ask you about the arrest and shutdown of Backpage.com recently. It's been heralded as a great success for your office, but Children at Risk out of Houston had this study showing that there are 689 massage parlors where online reviews cite illicit activity going on, 200 of them locally. I mean, is trafficking moving from online to our own neighborhoods, and is that more dangerous?
Look, what we're trying to do is partly send a message that if you're doing these types of things with children and others, we're going to come after you. And so all we know is that 73% of the crimes or the causes of action reported to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children came off of Backpage.com, were related to Backpage.com. So we targeted where we thought the most damage was occurring. And we just started this unit a little over 2 years ago, and we quickly moved into arresting the CEO. We did it after about 8 months, and now he's pled guilty, and we're going after others.
Let's talk about Dreamers in Texas, the people brought here illegally as children. You sent a letter threatening to sue President Trump and his administration if it didn't rescind the Obama policy. Congress isn't taking action. Will your office follow through in a lawsuit and actually sue the Trump administration over this?
So right now we're looking at how we do that. We're looking at involving other states. So I would say it's very likely we're going to take some action in the future.
What do you expect? A lawsuit against them?
Yeah, I mean that would be
rescind this.
They don't give me any other resources in the legislature other than lawyers. So I use lawyers. We go to court. So that's the likely result of our action.
End of the year? What do you expect?
I don't have a time frame. I can just say it's likely coming.
There were investigators interviews in Tarrant County about a vote harvesting investigation. We kept hearing we'd hear something by December, we'd hear something by February. We never have heard anything. What's coming from your office?
So investigations are ongoing. I don't comment on the details. I'll just say that that is continuing. Sometimes things are slower than we anticipate because they might be a little larger and bigger scale than we anticipated. So I can say that we are continuing to work on those cases, and you'll likely see something coming soon.
General Paxton, your own legal battle has yet to go to trial. Do you expect that it will?
Have no idea. They moved it out of Collin County for, in my opinion, no apparent reason to Harris County, and it's just stuck there, and I don't anticipate going to trial anytime soon.
When do you think there might be a resolution?
I have pushed for a resolution over and over. I've been going through this for 3 years. I've asked for a resolution, and so far no resolution has come.
I'm curious also, based on your, completing your first term in office, what would you like to see the legislature address next session when they reconvene in January?
Well, I mean, as a taxpayer, I'd love to see property tax reform. I think that's something that's long overdue. A lot of our senior citizens on fixed income are being forced out of their homes because they can't afford property taxes. From my standpoint, we also need to do a lot with criminal justice reform. I don't think that our state has addressed many of the issues that relate to grand juries and how people are treated in the criminal justice system. So there's plenty to do in the legislature, and it's going to be an interesting session with a different speaker, and our current lieutenant governor having the opportunity now maybe to get some of the things that they've tried to do in the past through the House.
You spent time in the House. Who might that speaker be in the final moments?
That is a great question. Even when I was in the House, I typically didn't know until we got to the final days because, it's a constantly evolving situation, and it depends on who's running as to how it affects other people in the race. So, currently you might have 3 people in the race. I think by the end you could have 10. So as each person gets in, it changes the dynamic of how that race is going to turn out.
Sounds good. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, thanks for coming in.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
The latest political poll in the state is no doubt encouraging to Democrats. The survey last week showed the U.S. Senate race in Texas now a tight one. More than 1,000 Texas voters questioned, and incumbent Ted Cruz, they're barely ahead of Beto O'Rourke. Cruz at 47%, O'Rourke at 44%, within the margin of error, too close to call. Ross Ramsey is the co-founder and executive editor of the Texas Tribune. He's in studio with us this week. Good to see you, man.
Good morning.
Results of this poll had a lot of people saying, wow.
Yeah, it's a really interesting poll. It's a poll of all Texans, though. It's a poll of registered voters and not likely voters. In Texas, fewer than half of the registered voters actually vote, so there's a lot of non-voters in here. So if you're a Republican, that's where you find your comfort. If you're a Democrat, you go to this and you say, well, we got to get those people to turn out. It's interesting because you've got an incumbent senator, you've got a challenger, it's a red state, all of the atmosphere favors Ted Cruz, but Beto O'Rourke looks like between this and his fundraising and things that he's surviving on Ted Cruz's red planet. And
he's like, to me, I see the fundraising, now I see this. Is he chipping away? Does he have a chance now?
Well, I don't know if I want to go that far. We're 7 months out. There's a lot of real estate and time between here and there. Ted Cruz isn't ignoring this race. But I think it's going to be a very interesting contest all the way through, and I can't say that about many of the statewide contests between Republicans and Democrats.
Let's talk about local control for a moment, too. The whole fight is now shifting to short-term rentals,
right?
Airbnb. Courts are now involved in this. Are they going to make the final decision on this since the legislature couldn't?
There's a couple of things going on here. The courts are going to decide a lot of it, but that has to do mostly with local laws, local ordinances. This has been a big deal in Austin. It's not been as big a deal in Dallas or Houston. But the state legislature is looking at it and saying maybe these ought to be regulated at the state level instead of at the local level so we can get one set of laws all the way across Texas.
Well, we'll wait to see what happens. Ross, back to you in a moment. Thank you. We'll have 2 elections next month, not just the May 22nd runoff, but another one on May 5th for cities and quite a few seats on school boards. Sydney Walker from Coffee and Politics 101 says candidates for school districts, they need to be prepared to put politics aside.
Public schools are in the forefront of the news. Teacher walkouts in some states and Secretary of Education visits. The public has been moved to voice their opinion. How does this activity move the needle forward to quality education, which is what parents want for their children? School board trustees are tasked with solutions for all the schools in the district, not just their own. Partnerships with all trustees benefits the student body at large and not any particular district. Contentious races make things even worse when facts on work done in the community or in office is ignored by social media fans. We have to get back to the basics and look at what is in the best interest of our students, because they become our elected officials and adults of tomorrow. Poor education leads to the demise of a nation. I am Sydney Walker, and this is My Voice, My Opinion.
If James Comey disliked President Trump so much, why didn't he just walk away from his job? His response to our question coming up next. And you've heard what President Trump has to say about the FBI. Can Republicans still claim to be the party of law and order? 2 points in 3 minutes when Inside Texas Politics returns.
The tale as old as time. Will Belle's love save the beast? Disney's Beauty and the Beast at Casa Manana, April 20th through May 13th. Tickets at casamanana.org.
You always said you would own a Cadillac someday. One with exhilarating power, performance, and style. Say goodbye to someday, and hello to the Cadillac ATS offer you've been waiting for. Because someday is now. Texas residents get this low mileage lease on this Cadillac ATS from around $279 per month. Visit your Metroplex Cadillac dealers today.
Def Jam super iconic, Jay-Z, Kanye West, Nas, etc. So to be a part of that legacy meant everything. And in 2014, before I even left my job on a dry erase board, I had Def Jam records written on my refrigerator. And to make it happen, it really changed my life. When we look back at the genre's history and look at the greats, I want to make sure that my name is mentioned. I'm Bobby Sessions, the legend, and I'm a rapper from Dallas, Texas.
She had a lot of trouble in school.
He had some impulsivity issues.
He was having a lot of meltdowns, a lot of tantrums.
I feel like all I did was yell at my kid all day.
Brain Balance is the answer for your kid because it didn't just mask the problems, it actually addressed the issue.
We started seeing huge differences in her behavior.
It's a totally different life.
Attend a free lecture by Dr. Robert Melillo, Thursday, April 5th. Call for details.
Life is good, and at Robeson Ranch, a Robeson Resort community for active adults, it just keeps getting better. Come explore our exceptional resort lifestyle at Robeson Ranch. Tour stunning model homes featuring visionary designs. Then enjoy great food and discover for yourself our world-class resort lifestyle. Visit Robeson.com for details. Robeson Ranch, a life as big as Texas.
Looking for something more intelligent in your next sedan? Well, look no further than Hyundai. The Sonata is packed with technology and comes from the brand named #1 in customer loyalty 9 years running. The Elantra is all brains with smart brakes and smart cruise control that adjust to changing traffic. All on top of America's best warranty. So every Hyundai sedan is a great deal more than just a great deal. Right now, get $4,250 in total savings or 0% APR on the 2018 Sonata. Visit buyhyundai.com.
The tale as old as time. Will Belle's love save the beast? Disney's Beauty and the Beast at Casa Manana, April 20th through May 13th. Tickets at casamanana.org.
Former FBI Director James Comey has reached an unusual place in the vitriol of American politics. He's disliked by both the right and the left. His new book, though, already one of the best sellers of the year. A couple of days ago, we got to ask Comey some of our own questions about President Trump and how he wants history to remember him. Director Comey, thank you for speaking with us today.
Great to be with you.
Based on your conversations and what you've seen, do you think President Trump has committed a crime?
I don't know the answer to that. I certainly saw personally some behavior that is potentially evidence of obstruction of justice, but I'm just a witness in this case, as strange as that is for me at this point in my life. I'm not the prosecutor or the investigator, and that ultimate judgment would depend upon the gathering of other evidence that I can't see, and it's no longer my job to gather. So that's a long way of saying I don't know.
Is that evidence you saw that you mentioned in the George Stephanopoulos interview, is that enough for an actual case?
Well, at the core of obstruction of justice is the intent of the person who's being investigated. A person has to act with corrupt intent to be guilty of obstruction of justice. And so it requires the gathering of evidence that reflects on what that person's state of mind is, conversations before, conversations after, and a bunch of stuff that I can't see. And so I can't offer you a view on the ultimate conclusion. That's the special prosecutor's job to figure that out. And I'm confident if he's not interfered with, he'll get to truth. And I don't know what the truth is. I don't care, so long as he finds the truth. And I think that he will if he's left to do his job.
Director Comey, you suggested in the ABC interview that it's possible President Trump is compromised by the Russians, but you offered no evidence. Why do you think that?
A number of things. First of all, in normal circumstances, you could say it's simply impossible that a certain person would be in a certain situation. In this case, I can't say that. And then I have the additional circumstance of an individual who just kept bringing it up with me, which is not conclusive evidence, but as an investigator, you start to be concerned when someone raises something repeatedly. And then the third factor would be the reluctance of the president, even in private, to criticize Vladimir Putin is striking. Now, I'm not saying it exists. I think it's very unlikely, but if I'm honest, it's possible.
If you had concerns with the president early on, why didn't you just walk away, retire, take off?
Well, because that would have been abandoning the FBI. Actually, my concerns about the president just increased my commitment to stay and try and lead and protect that amazing institution, which is supposed to be at a distance from the president and the political leadership.
You're only the second FBI director behind Louis Freeh to write a book, but Louis Freeh waited until all the investigations were over with. Should you have waited until Mueller's investigation was over before releasing this book?
Now, that's a reasonable question, and I could see people seeing it differently. My thinking is this. My testimony is locked down. I testified under oath in front of the Senate. I gave written testimony. It's based on written memos that I created at the time. And so there really isn't a fear, unless I start making stuff up, I suppose, but that's not going to happen. There isn't a fear that I'm going to create inconsistent statements because it's already set in concrete.
Director Comey, how do you think that history will remember you?
I don't know. I kind of hope history doesn't remember me at all, and that I made a small contribution to having a conversation, not about policy disputes, which are important in this country, but not as important as something higher than that, which is our values, and drive a discussion of values that I hope people, whether they're Republican or Democrat or neither, will realize is more important than the things we disagree about on a daily basis. And if I've made a small contribution to that, I'd love to be a father or grandfather and a professor and not be remembered, honestly. By my kids, I'd love to be remembered, but I don't really care about being remembered by history.
Director Comey, thank you for speaking with us.
All right, thanks for taking the time.
Bring up the border, and Republicans talked for years about law and order. Can the GOP, though, still claim that after President Trump attacks the FBI at every turn? That's what sparked Flashpoint this morning. From the right, Mark Davis of 660 AM The Answer, and from the left, Rich Hancock of virtualnewscenter.com.
Thanks, Jason, and good morning, everyone. Well, a lot of us are wondering where the Law and Order Republican Party has gone. I think my friend Mark Davis believes it's still here. I do not. Discuss.
I'm guessing that you're saying that because we're suddenly finding fault with the FBI, not every probe seems to be pristine. We're actually casting some aspersions on what we perceive as bias in some of these hallowed halls. Yeah, we see all of those things. That doesn't make these attacks on law and order. It makes them attacks on the people who are purporting to be filled with the notion of law and order now that we have big doubts about.
What it is attacks on law and order. And it's not just in the Justice Department, where an unprecedented, ridiculous hatred of the FBI is being exhibited by the president and the people around him, but it's in environmental ethics, in business ethics. We have an EPA that's being dismantled by Scott Pruitt. The idea that any regulation on what you put in our food or in our water or in our air is somehow a violation of our freedoms is ridiculous. So what about the ethics? What about just doing what's right?
Well, we are doing what's right. We're dismantling the regulatory state. American business has been hamstrung for too long by onerous, excessive regulation. It's just where the bar is set about what is enough regulation and what is not. And as far as we go back to hatred of the FBI, please, I can't let that go. Ain't nobody hating on the FBI. Comey is not our favorite guy. Strzok and Page are not our favorite. The noble FBI has been shot through with Trump haters, and that's just not going to stand.
The noble FBI has been attacked and berated in an unprecedented fashion by the president on down. We saw the raid of Michael Cohen. I use the word raid. We saw the execution of a warrant on Michael Cohen's office being called a raid by the president. It wasn't a raid, it was a warrant execution.
But we don't believe in the fairness of that either.
Why? It was a federal judge who issued a warrant.
Hillary's attorney was never rifled through her stuff. I mean, let's look for some consistency. From the right, Mark Davis, 660 AM, The Answer.
Whataboutism, Rich Hancock from the left.
Does home improvement shopping feel like flushing your money down the toilet? You won't feel that way at Seconds and Surplus. With discounts of up to 50 to 90% on the latest home improvements, you can hold on to more of your money.
Hail forms when updrafts carry water droplets above the freezing line and back down to melt. This process repeats itself until the hailstone becomes too heavy and falls to earth.
The more you know about the weather, the better. WFAA Weather Minds, sponsored by TXU Energy.
TXU Energy free nights and solar days. It's two great things in
solar part's better.
Beg to differ. Free nights is better. Burn.
Okay, guys, settle down.
Can't burn the sun.
Free nights and solar days only from TXU Energy.
Says the big ball of gas.
It's gonna be a good day. Because at Ross, you got the trends everyone wants. For a fraction of what you'd pay elsewhere. Ross has all the latest looks for so much less. So you can get the styles you love and still save big. So to get more trend for less spend, you know what to do. You've gotta go to Ross. Visit our new store in Midlothian.
Does your Weed and Feed work as hard as Bayer Advanced 3-in-1 Weed and Feed for southern lawns? Let's find out. Both Weed and Feed, but only Bayer Advanced 3-in-1 Weed and Feed for southern lawns also prevents new weeds, including crabgrass, up to 6 months. The real bonus comes from Bayer Advanced. Bayer Advanced 3-in-1 Weed and Feed for southern lawns. Get more from the blue bag.
The Super Sale at Nebraska Furniture Mart means extraordinary mattress savings on top name brands. Take an additional 11% off the already low Mart price with qualifying mattress purchases. Receive a 32-gig iPad with Tempur-Pedic, Beautyrest Black, Stearns & Foster, and iComfort mattresses. Plus, use Super Financing. Find your perfect mattress with $75 on display. Don't miss these extraordinary mattress deals. 11% off iPad Super Financing. Shop the Super Sale now at Nebraska Furniture Mart.
It's the Volkswagen Smile at Spring Sales Event, where you will find great deals on award-winning SUVs that are sure to make you smile. With over 40 standard features and with America's best bumper-to-bumper limited warranty. During the Volkswagen Spring Sales Event, you can't help but smile.
Do you know them?
Do you know them?
It's the Volkswagen Smile at Spring Sales Event.
Hurry in and get 1.9% APR for 60 months on new 2018 Atlas models, or lease this Atlas S for $319 a month.
Is home improvement shopping snatching all of your money? You won't feel that way at Seconds and Surplus. With discounts of up to 50 to 90% on the latest home improvements, you can hold on to more of your money.
Time now for Reporters Roundtable to put the headlines in perspective. Bud and Ross both still with us, and joining us as always is Bernadine Steptoe, our political producer here at Channel 8. Let's start out with this conversation on Barbara Bush. Former First Lady passed away last week, buried yesterday. What's her legacy? Ross, will start with you.
You know, she changed the role of the First Lady from little things like, you know, you're used to seeing the spouse of a presidential candidate appear as a nominator at the party convention. She was the first one who did that. To being a full political partner and for picking a way to say the things that her husband couldn't say. I think this is actually sort of important. So he has to be circumspect, the president has to be circumspect, and she popped off once in a while, sometimes in very useful ways for him.
And she loved doing that. And I also think that she would be remembered by how she raised her family. Yep. She raised decent people, and she sort of humanized Daddy Bush. But she was able to live in both worlds successfully, and I think she's going to be remembered for that.
She played the role well.
People talk about the charm and dignity and patience, but I think you also have to look at the fact that she talked continuously about education. And one thing that sets the Bushes aside from so many others of the Republican Party is the focus on education and on reading and literacy, and that is a federal role and there is a government role in education at a time when, I mean, my gosh, they came up an era when the John Birch Society wanted to end all public education. And she said, no, this is our job and we need to take care of these children.
And of course, her Foundation for Literacy is one of the things she's most well known for, too. Let's jump back to the politics and the poll we discussed earlier. Ross and I did. Everyone's talking about the O'Rourke-Cruz race, too. But that poll, same poll, showed also that 2/3 of Texans think that illegal immigrants aren't criminals and they should be able to apply for citizenship. 2/3 of Texans. That's not what the Republicans in charge of this state are saying or want either, though.
You know, some of this is geography. Texans have been on the border of Mexico the whole time, and we have a different understanding of this. It's a part of our culture. It's a part of our economy, and we just understand this and have a better relationship here than Republicans or Democrats in Ohio or New Hampshire or places like that.
We're closer to it. Live
the
with
national conversation is different from the conversation in border states.
Does that surprise you guys?
Well, you know, the poll has a dichotomy in it because it says that we love the illegal immigrants who are here. 2/3 of us want them to stay. But we also like having the guard on the border. We just don't like having a wall on the border. It just shows in Texas, I mean, we live with people. They're neighbors, they're family members, they're friends, they're teachers, they're workers we encounter every day. We're not mad at them. We don't think they're criminals. You know, I mean, I think the poll really, although it is voters, it's not likely voters. I think it really reflects how Texans feel.
I think it does too, and it's not new. I think Texans have always felt that the immigrants were more neighbors and friends and actually relatives. So it doesn't surprise me at all.
Final seconds here, too. I want you guys each hit on this. How does any of this affect the governor's race, Lupe Valdez and Greg Abbott?
It's going to be a central issue. If it's Lupe Valdez, I expect it will be, but if it's Lupe Valdez, they're going to talk about sanctuary cities, they're going to talk about law enforcement, they're going to talk about immigration. All of those things hit the Republican marks, and Abbott's going to do that.
Well, and I don't think that it will make that much of a difference in terms of who wins that election, because Abbott is going to do well. He has the money to do well. He's going to get his voters out as well as statewide voters, so I don't think it's going to have that much of a difference. I think that it will be topics, and they're going to hit hard at it, but as far as making a difference.
I guess we're not going to talk about Andrew White's education plan. He wants casinos to help fund education, but he's not getting any traction with that.
Well,
and of course,
he's not going to be.
Yeah, and Andrew White and Lupe Valdez, I jumped too early on that with you, Ross. Lupe Valdez and Andrew White will meet in the May 22nd runoff. Thank you guys very much, and thank you for watching as well. ABC's This Week begins in just a moment. We'll see you again next Sunday. Hope you have a good week.